Hello guys. Okay, I sure hope you can hear me. Okay, I'm gonna start using Blender. I'm gonna be honest, right now I don't know what I want to do in the future, but I like it to be something creative. I'm into writing books. I loved watching cartoons when I was little, so I'd like to create some cartoons, but I can't draw. And I recently figured out that my writing is a bit shaky too. I'd also like to draw comics, but so let's see if I can learn to use Blender. Okay, I've already got Blender 4.0. I shall open it. And wait a bit. Okay. Now on YouTube, I shall type in Blender tutorials for beginners. Sorry I'm whispering, it's like night time now.
Want to spend more time keeping track of the little things? Shopify's tools help you stay organized.
This is Blender.
I don't want anything to change. Is this on or off? Well, whatever. This is a new account I'm making. No, technically I could use a channel that I'm going to post. I'm not sure why I made a totally different account for this channel. I could have just used this channel to watch videos on YouTube. I went through this process for nothing, but whatever. Let's get right to it.
This is Blender, open source 3D software that can be used to make animations, visual effects, game assets, or practically anything 3D. And best of all, it's
So, I also want to create games. Let me try and turn that off. Okay, good. Do not disturb.
100% free, and it always will be. If you've never used it before,
How does he know that? Well, I remember, I guess, the creator said it, if my memory serves correctly, from years ago.
but you want to learn it, well, then you're in the right place. This is a tutorial for complete beginners. I've been using Blender for 20 years, so I'm going to show you how to use all of its core features. And by the end, you'll finish with not only the confidence to start your own projects, but with your very own donut animation. And I know this looks complex, but I promise you it's achievable for a complete beginner. And I say that with confidence.
To be honest, I wanted to be unique, wanted to try to do something a bit different, but beggars can't be choosers. Need to start somewhere simple. I really hope. I started a bit late. I probably should have started from the 1st of January, but oh well. So maybe this time next year I would like to become good at Blender. This time next year will be the 30th of January at 21 hour. coming up to 9 now. 8:56.
Because many already have. This is actually the fourth version of this tutorial. I made the first donut tutorial back in 2016, and I've been remaking it every few years to keep up with Blender's development. In that time, millions of people, just like yourself, have gone from having never used 3D to successfully making their own donuts. One artist even
Speaking of the versions, I heard that if you sign up to Twitch or click the button for Twitch, it would automatically update, but I didn't do that. So I'm a bit worried about that. Hopefully everything updates flawlessly if I do it manually.
snuck his into a little film called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Very clever. So if you're ready to take your first steps in 3D, hit the subscribe button and let's begin. First, go to blender.org/download or just click the link in the description. Then, obviously, you got to hit the big download button. Once downloaded on Windows, double click it and then just go through the install steps. But if you're on a Mac, just drag it into the applications folder. Then just find the Blender shortcut and open it. Then once it's open, just click anywhere off the splash screen to close it, and welcome to the wonderful world of 3D. First tip, do not get overwhelmed. If you go clicking around, you might find lots of buttons and some of them with very scary names, and it can all get very overwhelming very quickly. The thing you need to know is Blender can do a lot of things, which means it has a lot of tools, but you don't need to know every tool in order to do what you want to do. If you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, there's really only 20% of Blender's features that you end up using 80% of the time. And that's what I'm planning to teach you in this tutorial series. So stay with me and you should be fine. We'll start making the donut in the next video. In this one, we're just going to look at the interface and I'm going to show you some of the basic navigation. So for starters, this view, this window right here is your 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time because it is the 3D world. So you can see that we have three objects here. We've got a camera, we've got a cube.
I didn't actually notice the camera and the light, I think, when I first used Blender. Guess I didn't really look at everything. You wanted to watch like this tutorial or some other tutorials first. I actually wanted to try out making humans, like people, characters, but I don't think there were beginner tutorials for that, or beginner tutorials in a way like this is.
And we've got a lamp, and when we click on it you can see it's selected because it has the yellow outline. So let's delete the default cube, of course, and replace it with something else. So we could do that by going up to the add.
Delete the cube. He didn't really show us how he did that. Am I meant to delete this cube? How do I delete the cube? If it's for beginners, you need to explain everything word for word for dummies like me. Well, I guess we didn't have to. Okay, let me try and watch carefully.
So let's delete the default cube, of course, and replace it with something.
He pressed something on his mouse. I don't know what to press. I'm horrible at using the computer. When in doubt, just look it up.
there are other ways to delete the cube. You go tap into edit mode, select one of the vertices and just press X, delete vertices. So it's not a cube anymore. Let's make it less.
I don't know how to delete the whole cube. My video demo when it comes to this. Advanced tutorial.
Tutorial, we're going to
I'm actually scared to pause the recorder I'm using. Not sure if it'll stop permanently when I have to go through this arduous process of trying to combine two or more different videos. That takes ages.
be going through how to delete the default cube. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with your default scene here. You're going to grab the default cube. You're going to press X and then click delete. And that will delete the cube for this instance. You're going to come up here to File, Defaults, Save Startup File. Click this. And
Good to know. X. Oh. Why didn't he explain that? I don't understand. Well, we just meant to know it was X. Or was that it? I'm gonna see if other people had the same, like, didn't know. Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe it was just me. Okay, I deleted the cube. Oops, nope. But seriously, how are we meant to know this? But let's delete it. I hope he explains things more detailed. Am I judging too much? I'm sure he would have explained it right. Maybe it's just me.
Something else. So we could do that by going up to the Add menu up here, or by remembering the hotkey, which is Shift A. So Shift A for Add.
Okay, Shift A for Add, or the Add key. Shift A for Add, or the Add key. Feel like I should write this down. I'm just gonna use online note. Oops. This is the annoying thing. I don't know. No thanks. Note. Okay, which one should I use? This one. Okay. Shift A for Add. Okay.
Add. So usually the one you're looking for is underneath mesh. So these are called your primitives, and it's what you use to start something when you're looking to make an object. Like if you
Mesh. Hope I spell this right. Primitive. Oops. I shouldn't like note everything down, or else I might as well just watch the video again.
You're going to make a chair, you might start with a cylinder as the chair leg and then build out from there. But the one I'm sure you're all very curious, you want to click it, it's the monkey. So let's just click the monkey. Why does Blender have a monkey? Well, fun fact, every 3D software has its own little random complex object because it's useful to test things like shaders or complexities of scenes. So 3ds Max has the Utah teapot, Houdini has the toy, and I think pig's head. Blender has the monkey, and it's actually called the Suzanne monkey head, which you can see in the top left there, named after the orangutan from the film Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Random piece of trivia. So let's get a better look at it. And to that we need to orbit, which you can do by on your mouse there, your scroll wheel, that is called your middle mouse button. If you push that in and then drag around, that is now orbiting. Now, for my laptop users, you've just panicked because you realize you don't have a mouse. How are you going to orbit around? First of all, probably a good idea to get a mouse for 3D work. It will come in handy. But in a pinch, you can get by without it just by up here in the top right-hand corner, this little gray circle, anywhere in the gray section.
Okay, I was going to say good. I am using a laptop, but I do need a mouse.
If you just left-click drag on that, that will do the exact same thing. Or if you want, you can go to Edit Preferences, and then underneath Input, there's Emulate 3-button mouse. And that means that if you hold down Alt and then left-click drag, that will do the exact same thing. Also, whilst you are in, or if you want, you can go to Edit Preferences. And then underneath Input, there's Emulate. Emulate 3-button mouse. And that means that if you hold down Alt and then left-click drag, that will do the exact same thing. Also, whilst you are in user preferences, you might want to go to interface and you've got resolution scale. If you're on a 4K monitor, you might find that your menus and buttons are really small and you kind of have to like squint in to see it. So personally, I like to keep my 4K monitor around about 1.5, but since this is a tutorial, I'll make it nice and big.
I don't think we need to do the interface, but let's go on Edit. Let's see if my memory is correct. Edit Preferences. Scroll down. It's not here. What was it? Okay, yeah, can't count on my memory. Input. Input. Emulate. Wait, before that.
You might want to go to interface and you've got to get a mouse for 3D work. It will come in handy. But in a pinch, you can get by without it just by up here in the top right-hand corner, this little gray circle, anywhere in the gray section. If you just left-click drag on that, that will do the.
Okay, let's try it out. Let's click drag. Okay, now preferences, input, and emulate 3-button mouse. Oops. Oh, Alt Shift. What was it? Yeah, this is me. It's gonna be a hard process. Alt left click. Oh no, Shift left click. At the same time, Alt left click and drag. Okay, it might be a bit difficult to use both hands, but it's fine. I really hope I'm not too quiet in this video and you guys could actually hear me.
Exact same thing. Or if you want, you can go to. So personally, I like to keep my 4K monitor around about 1.5. But since this is a tutorial, I'll make it nice and big so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's orbiting around with the middle mouse button. If we want to zoom in, we can do that just by scrolling in and out. We could also do it by going up to the magnifying glass tool there, and then just left click dragging and then moving the mouse back and forth.
Okay. Magnifying tool. You know what? Let me just add. Hey, the monkey. Okay. Magnifying tool. We have to click it. Just gonna use this. You're already figuring out my preferences and what I prefer and what I like. I was about to say what I prefer, but it's redundant.
Does the same thing. Or you could hold down Control and then middle mouse button, and that will do a smooth zoom as well.
Control, middle mouse.
Okay, so one thing you might notice looking at this is that it's not very pretty, right? It's just kind of got this flat, bland, gray lighting over everything. And that's because this state right now is called viewport shading. And it's kind of a lightweight, optimized way to view the scene just as you're building it. But if you want to create a final pretty image, that's called rendering. And you can actually switch into rendered mode by going up here into the top right-hand corner. You can see we're currently in the viewport shading mode. If we go 2 across, you should see rendered view mode. So if we click that, pretty image, that's called rendering. And you can actually switch into rendered mode by going up here into the top right hand corner. You can see we're currently in the viewport shading mode. If we go 2 across, you should see rendered view mode. So if we click that, your computer might stall for a quick second whilst it loads it in, but you can see it's now different. We have directional light. We have shadow cast across the monkey. So it's now currently being lit by this lamp up here. So if I wanted to, zoom in on that lamp there and just kind of like move it around, you can see it's kind of hard to focus on. Like it's always exactly not in the right view. And that's because we are centered on our monkey right now. We need to change the focus. We need to pan to something else. So we could do that one of 2 ways. One, if you're on a laptop, you could use the little move tool there. That will do that. Or everyone else, shift middle mouse click, drag, that will do the same thing. So middle mouse is for orbiting, shift middle mouse is for pan to change.
Shift middle mouse for panning.
your view to something else. Okay, so I want to move my light because it's too moody. I want to be able to see the monkey's face there. So to move an object, you could do it one of two ways. One, you could go over to the left-hand corner here and you've got the move tool. When you click that, you can see that the selected object, the lamp, has this gizmo, it's called, with these axes on it. And if I just clicked and dragged on any of those arrows there, you can see I can move it along any of those axes. I could also just click on that white circle there, and that will just freehand drag it depending on my view. But it's kind of tedious. Every time you want to move something, you have to like go to that tool and then find the arrows and yada yada. So actually most people in Blender prefer to use the hotkeys. So we just keep it in the default selection state here, and instead remember the hotkey, which is G for grab. Now I've just tapped the key, and you'll notice as I move my cursor,
Okay, G. Shouldn't be too hard to remember.
that it's now attached to my cursor. My cursor isn't even actually close to it. In fact, my cursor could be on the other side of the screen and I could tap G and it will move it. And at first this is kind of awkward. You're like, why is it working this way? But once you get used to it, you realize it's actually handy because you don't have to spend all this time like navigating your cursor to something just so that you can move it. Your cursor could be over here and then just tap it and you're moving it. So whilst you're in this move state, if you want to cancel a movement, you could do it one of two ways. You could just hit escape, or you could right click. Then if you want to confirm a movement, like say I want to move my lamp here and I like the movement, I could just do a single left click.
Cancel movement. S. Okay. Escape or
Just so that you can move it. Your cursor could be over here and then just tap it and you're moving. Escape, or you could right click. Then if you want to confirm a movement, like say I want to move my lamp here and I like the movement, I could just do a single left click. So again, if I want to cancel something, just right click. If I want to confirm the movement, left click. But let's say I wanted to move it along an axis, like, I like these arrows here and I want to be able to move it on just a specific axis. Well, I can do that whilst I'm in that.
okay, let me just try this out. I think it was this one, right? No, this one. Was it this one? Okay, look. It's this one. How do I turn this around? Whatever. And left click.
Grab state as well. So after I've hit the G key to grab it, I can then tap the letter of the axes that I want to move it on. So if you don't know, in the real world and in the 3D software, there are 3 axes because there's 3 dimensions. There's the X axis, which I can move it by hitting the X key. The arrows here and I want to be able to move it on just a specific axis. Well, I can do that whilst I'm in that grab state as well. So after I've hit the G key to grab it, I can then tap the letter of the axes that I want to move it on. So if you don't know, in the real world and in the 3D software, there are 3 axes because there's 3 dimensions. There's the X axis, which I can move it by hitting the X key, the Y axis to move it back and forth along the Y axis with the Y key, or the Z axis to move it up and down on.
I'm actually too lazy to put where it moves from. Is that this? What is going on? This is hard. And I've really just started. I'm pressing G. So I have to be on it. K, G, X, G, Y. Oh, what was for confirm? Left click. G, Z. Okay guys, this is a little bit embarrassing for me, but I did not know about the Z axis. I did not. I only knew about the Y and X. I mean, I knew there were 3 directions, but I mean dimensions, but I didn't know like in 3D they'll be named with the different letters. By the way, not sure if you can notice I keep moving my mouse like here, because if anybody comes in my room to talk with me and want to quickly as possible stop my microphone recording, because I do not want to stop or try and pause the recording. I do not want to go through all that.
The Z axes. So you can remember those letters, the X, Y, and Z. Or the method that I actually prefer to use is whilst you're in that G state, if you just hold down the middle mouse button and then pull out, you can see you get this like gray line that pulls out from the center. And then if you just drag out and move around, it will snap it to the nearest axes, which again is maybe an odd way to work, but it's actually really handy because it means you don't have to think of the letter and locate it on your keyboard. I can just tap G to move it and then middle mouse drag out and then just find that exact axis that I'm looking for.
And is it that hard to remember? It probably will be as I go on. Not gonna lie. G, left click. G. G and left. G. Oh, that's making it bigger. Fortunately, cannot yet do it.
And so it's very fun. If you just drag out and move around, it will snap axes to move it back and forth along the Y axis with the Y key, or the Z axis to move it up and down. Prefer to use is whilst you're in that G state, if you just hold down the middle mouse button and then pull out, you can see you get this like gray line that pulls out from the center. And then if you just drag out and move around, it will snap it to
Hold down the middle
a line that pulls out from the center. And then if you just drag out and move around, it will snap it to the nearest axes, which again is maybe an odd way to work, but it's actually really handy because it means you don't have to think of the letter and locate it on your keyboard. I can just tap G to move it and then middle mouse drag out and then just
middle mouse drag. Okay. Right. G. Middle mouse. I can already tell how this is gonna go, me using Blender. Okay, I think the first thing I'm gonna need is a mouse. Let's
find that exact axis that I'm looking for. And so it's very fast to just quickly move the lamp exactly where I want it. By the way, if you're finding it hard to remember all of the keyboard shortcuts that I've mentioned, I've actually put together a PDF, a cheat sheet of Blender's most common hotkeys, and you can download that by clicking the link in the description, so you could print it out or you could just have it on a separate monitor while you work. Also, if you are from another 3D software package, you might
do that later.
I notice that Blender's hotkeys are different than what you are used to. So if you actually go to preferences, just for those people that are from other softwares, if you change the key map to industry compatible, you'll find that these shortcuts are probably more in line with what you remember from other software. I'll also put a link to a cheat sheet that is just for the industry compatible key maps that somebody else put together. I've got nothing to do with it, but I'll put that link there so you can check it out as well. For the rest of this tutorial series, I'm going to use Blender's hotkeys. Just keep that in mind. Now let's say, as I am moving around here, I'm like, oh, this looks really good. I've got some nice Rembrandt lighting across the monkey's face. I want to take a photo. I want to take a nice, pretty image of this and post it on socials for clout, right? Well, I could take a screenshot of it, but that would be silly because it's got all these lines all over. It's all noisy, right? We don't like it. The way you take a photo, a pretty image in Blender, is to do a render. So you could do that one of two ways, by going up to render and hitting render image, or remembering the hotkey, which says next to it F12. So when you do that, a little window will pop up. It will use your CPU or GPU, depending on which renderer you've got active, and it will render out a pretty image. And from here, you could go image and then save as, and that'll save it as a PNG or whatever, wherever you want to save it. But you might notice looking at this that this is actually a different view than what we have here, right? So here I've got a nice view of the monkey's face, but up there is a different view. And the reason for that is when you do a render, it's not rendering from the view that you're looking at currently. It's always going to render from the point of view of the camera. So this is our camera over here, and it's looking from this angle. And we can actually look through the camera by just clicking the little camera icon there, or by remembering the hotkey, which is number pad 0. So how do we move the camera? Well, Blender's a little awkward, maybe a little different to other software packages, but you're supposed to like hit G to move it, and then like middle mouse to zoom in and out. And then if you want to like move it along an axis, I guess G and then X. You could do that, but actually what a lot of users prefer, especially those from other software packages, is if you've got your camera selected, which by the way, I haven't mentioned this, but up here, this is your outliner. It's kind of an inventory of every item that you've got in your scene. Okay, so with the camera there selected, if I hit N, N is to bring up the properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view. There's a little box there that just says lock to camera to view. So now with that active, if I just use the same keyboard shortcuts as before, middle mouse button to orbit around, shift middle mouse, box there that just says lock to camera to view. So now kind of an inventory of every item that you've got in your scene. Okay, so with the camera there selected, if I hit N, N is to
and N. view. Look, camera to view. Okay, how do you get rid of this? Oops. Can't give up this scene. Okay. Yeah, basically the same thing. Okie dokie. Good enough.
To bring up the properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view. There's a camera is moving with it. So essentially the view, I can set it up exactly as I want. Lock to camera to view. So now with that active, if I just use the same keyboard shortcuts as before, middle mouse button to orbit around, shift middle mouse to drag it, you can see that the camera is moving with it. So essentially the view, I can set it up exactly as I want, then hit N again, and then I can disable that. And then now as I pull out, you can see that the camera will stay exactly where it was, and I could do a lovely, pretty render. But this is too simple. If we post this on the internet, people are
I shall skip out the pictures.
bound to make fun of us. Imagine that. Well, we could give it some color, right? So with our monkey head selected, we can go over to here to the properties. So this properties section is where you might spend the other, I don't know, another 5 to 8%, I don't know, getting too exact there. You might spend another 5% of your time in this section, but it's where all of the properties for things are in Blender. So for example, you've got like the render properties, like the size of the image that you're saving something as is defined there. And some of these properties will stay here no matter what is selected, but others are selection dependent. So you can see actually, if I click the camera there, you can see I get a little camera tab at the bottom there. But if I select my monkey, you'll see the camera tab disappears, but instead I have some other ones that appear. So one that we might want to change is underneath material, and this will enable us to add a material, change the color to something else, essentially. So underneath here where it's got new, I'm just going to hit new. And then you've got a bunch of options, very confusing. Ooh, IOR, subsurface. Again, don't worry about it. We'll get to all of that later on. The one that defines the color is the base color. So if I do a single left click,
Okay. Let's get rid of that. Okay. My voice. Custom properties. Okay, let me replay that again. Yeah, sorry if my voice has been quiet. Not only is it night, but also the coughs.
I have some other ones that appear. So one that we might want to change is underneath material, and this will enable us to add a
Oh, material. Okay, how do you get rid of this? I do not need you anymore. Disappear. This is texture, not material, but I'm guessing it's the same thing. Or is it not? Brush. No, it's not. It's the circular thing. Circle.
material, change the color to something else, essentially. So underneath here, where it's got new, I'm just going to hit new. And then you've got a bunch
That's what I'm doing. It took a while.
of options, very confused. Ooh, IOR, subsurface. Again, don't worry about it. We'll get to all of that later on. The one that defines the color is the base color. So if I do a single left click on that white box,
Nope, not what I wanted. Left click. In this case, it's just a normal click.
there, I can then change this color to whatever I want. I could make it an odd.
Okay. What color should I make it? I'll just leave it as this bronze orangey red. Or at least from this angle.
Creepy skin toned monkey head, right? Like that. And do a render. Okay, so hey, all right, it's better, but still it's too simple. I think people will think we haven't put enough effort into this masterpiece. So let's add another object. Let's give the monkey a hat. So if we want to add another object, how do we do it? Well, we could go to the add menu, like I mentioned before, or the hotkey Shift A. So what sort of hat do we want to add? We could do a boxy hat. Let's do a party hat with a cone. So once we've added that object,
Key to key. I'm just going to press add.
you can see it's just plopped it straight in the center, intersecting our monkey. So we need to move it. We can move it, and we could.
Just realised I've been watching in this view, like not in full screen. Is that okay? Do you guys mind? Do you want it like in full screen?
Grab it with the G key.
Like this. And then your other preferences. Also, do you guys like want me to document every single thing that I do for Blender, or do you mind if I do some additional things outside the outside the videos I make? Outside the videos I make. So it's about like 3 times.
Key, so it's now moving it just on our cursor there. I don't want to move it just freehand though, because I like the position, but I just want to move it up. So I'm going to hit Z to move it along the Z axis. Right, I like it there. So once I like the placement, I'm just going to do a single left click. Okay, great. But too big. Oh.
Key to key. how to move him, even though he just said, oh yeah, G, how did I forget that? The one thing I said I wouldn't forget. Oops. I did forget. Just going to G, no, it's a Y. No, X, Z. Let me DY. G, X. Okay, now Z. Oh, I have to click confirm, which is left click. Okay, now G, Z. I just clicked that. Okay, left click, G, X. Left click. Okay, my perspective is a little off. G, X, no, hat. Oh, yeah, the comb. G. This is gonna take me a while. You guys can laugh at me and tell me how easy you're finding this. Messing up the simplest of things. X. Okay. You kidding me? G, X. Okay, this should be good. Damn it. Okay, G, X. Okay, try not to mess this up. G, Y. Okay, that's good. G, X. Why is this taking me so long? G, X. Okay, yes. One side is bigger than the other, but whatever. Good enough.
See, we need to learn another tool, which is scale. So we could go to the scale tool there, and then we get this familiar little axes there. But again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which for scale is just S. So S to scale. So resizing that. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's move it down again. So G and Z. Okay, all right, but yeah, let's say we want to make it a little taller. Okay, so we could scale it along just the Z axis. So S and then Z. Whoops, S, Z, there we go. And it's now making it a tall party hat. Scale it down. There we go. Ha! Look at that.
Okay, S for scale. Z. K, S, Z. Okay, left click. S, Z. Oops. I didn't understand. S, Z. That's just a normal click. That looks good enough to me. But I guess if I'm learning, I shouldn't settle for good enough.
Be a very bland party if it's grey though, so let's give it another material. An exciting color, a vibrant aqua.
Okay, this looks good enough.
Color, why not? Give that a render by hitting F12. Okay, camera is in the wrong position, so let's go to camera view mode with number pad 0. I'm gonna select my camera, and rather than dabbling with that little thing I had before, I'm gonna hit G, and then middle mouse, just tap it once. As I said, it's a little awkward, Blender's the way it handles with the camera. But anyway, just move that out, and then
F1. Actually, don't. I'm just going to use this. Mine is F12. Oops. Okay. The camera is bad. And okay, now I'm going to pretend something a middle mouse.
it's a little awkward, Blender's the way it handles with the camera. Let's go to camera view mode with number pad 0. I'm gonna select my camera, and rather than dabbling with that little thing I had before, I'm gonna hit G, and then middle mouse, just tap it once. As I said,
G, a middle mouse. G and middle mouse. Okay.
it's a little awkward, Blender's the way it handles with the camera. But anyway, just move that out, and then I gotta rotate it. All right, so I'm gonna